Welcome to For the First Time in Forever, the show that aims to fill the gaps in all of our watch lists. Last week, we embarked on a treasure hunt by watching The Goonies, and if you haven't seen that already, you can click the link in the description and check that out. Now today, I'm joined by a very special guest as we talk about two films that are considered pioneers of their respective genres. Everyone, welcome to the show, Hector Rutter!
Whoa, where's all this applause coming from? Luke, are you gonna have to... Did you edit in this applause, or is this actually live?
Okay, I usually, when I do this sort of show, when I have a guest on, I like to ask them just a couple questions, just to sort of keep it a relaxed mood. But, I mean, that's all kind of been thrown out the window. Hector, I need to ask, the background on your TV,
Yeah.
oh, my lord, is it beautiful?
It's a work of art. I mean, whoever decides to come up with something this gracious and beautiful, I just can't stop thinking about it every time I go to bed. It's beautiful.
Every time you go, oh, Hector.
Dude, I have it framed on my wall as well.
Now, one interesting thing I know about you, Hector, there is a particular animation studio that you are quite fond of. Am I right in thinking that is Aardman?
Yes.
You are quite the Aardman fan.
Hang on, actually, speak.
Okay. So clearly not that big a fan at all then.
No. I don't have almost every single copy of all of the Aardman films ever released. I don't have like 3 versions of Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were-Rabbit in this household right now.
Well, the question I wanted to ask you, and this came out, I want to say about a month ago now. Aardman officially announced that they're going to be partnering with Netflix, and they're going to be making a Chicken Run 2. I just want what's your opinion on that? Because that's like one of your favourite films, isn't it?
I'm optimistically hopeful, I guess. The thing is that they're not getting in all of the old voice casts back. Like, obviously Mel Gibson's not coming back because, it's Mel Gibson. You don't really, for a family film, you don't really want that. But thing is that they haven't got the voice of Ginger back, and I don't quite understand why, seeing as Ginger herself, like the voice actress, still sounds exactly the same as she did back on the original. And it's just like, why ruin that? Why go for someone else? It's not even taking that far, well, it's not taking place that far away from the original. It should still be the original voice cast, but at the same time, it's Chicken Run 2, so I'm so excited.
Let's crack on with our first pick. But how this kind of works when I have a guest on is that each of us will pick a film that we haven't seen before. The other person might have seen it, it's just the luck of the draw. Now, Hector decided to choose 28 Days Later. Wait a second. I am going to be talking about spoilers for this film, so consider this your warning now.
Hello? Butter. Are you okay?
After a deadly outbreak causing mankind to turn into ravenous monsters, a man wakes from a coma to find London deserted. He runs into a small group of survivors as they travel to Manchester for the hope of safety. I'm not actually overly fond of the zombie genre. I think that most movies, aside from a couple, tend to follow a very well-worn path. Nothing really ever surprises me anymore, unless it's like, say, a Shaun of the Dead type one or Zombieland, where it takes the predetermined notions of a zombie film and kind of flips them on their head. I mean, Shaun of the Dead is much more of a rom-com than it is zombie related. So 28 Days Later, ultimately, I like it. It's just not something that's ever really wowed me when I've seen it. How about you? This was your first attempt.
For my first attempt, I've got to say I was pretty wowed. Um, I really liked it. Like, I think it does so many things really well, but it also has quite a few elements that just sort of bring it down for me. But in terms of the good, obviously the atmosphere. Like, everybody's talked about how great the atmosphere in that film is. The deserted London that they could only film in for like 5 minutes in the morning. Like, that is all brilliant. Cannot deny that. I think the characters are great, apart from one. We'll get to her later. Um, what I really liked as well were the actual themes and ideas of the film. Like, I did not realize that it would actually be as thematically strong as it was, especially with the whole idea of humans killing humans, how the whole end sequence of the film is basically that, and it doesn't really like try to explain it. It's just this whole visceral sequence. It's just Cillian Murphy going around setting free zombies, marking all these other dudes, and just trying to save these two girls. It's like, who really here is more of a monster? Is it the zombies or is it the people? And I thought that was a very interesting angle for the film to take and to not really explain who was actually worse in that regard.
Yeah, well, I mean, 28 Days Later, like I kind of said in the intro, it was a pioneer because it kind of now, when you look at zombie films, especially if you look at The Walking Dead, it has borrowed so much from a film like 28 Days Later. I'm not entirely sure
Mm,
when the comic books started to come out, whether there might have been an overlap, but in terms of obviously Cillian Murphy waking up from a coma, it's almost beat for beat the same for Rick Grimes when he wakes up and he sees
mm,
the deserted city. But that whole notion of humans actually being the real monsters, again, when I saw it for the first time, it really quite impressed me. But when I watched it again, it was a bit like I've seen this now done to death in so many other zombie properties. Like it's almost in every season of The Walking Dead, it's there in so many other examples. So for me, the kind of novelty had worn off a little bit.
I can see that. Like, for me, it's basically that I don't watch a lot of zombie stuff.
Mm.
I really try and steer clear away from that.
It helps as well, I think, stand out from a lot of other properties that kind of fall away. You have Danny Boyle as a director who has such a frenetic and kinetic style to his films because it worked for Trainspotting, obviously, because of the whole
Mm,
drug related thing, and it works here because you're kind of put in alongside Cillian Murphy and Naomi Harris as almost like another survivor who's tagging along with them. So anytime there's the possibility of the zombies coming, is like everything starts like going a bit crazy in terms of his like directorial take on it, which I thought was very
mm.
impressive.
Like, the way that they used the shutter speed as well on the cameras, like increasing the speed of that to make it seem more frenetic as well, I thought was a really clever use of actual camera trickery to make the zombies seem like they're going faster.
Mm.
Yeah.
That was the other thing. Is like you see so many in so many zombie films, uh, they're just slow, almost sloth like. But here
Mm,
they actually feel like a genuinely threatening presence because they will just charge at you. And once they've
mm.
got you in their sights, until you either kill them, like that's it. That's it for them. They are hunting for you.
Here's the thing though about the zombies. Like, I love them in the film. I think they're great, but I don't think they're as threatening as Danny Boy wants them to be.
Okay.
Mainly because, like, what I love in some other zombie films, I can't remember which ones, but I love it when every time a zombie or a threat appears, something goes terribly wrong. Like, they are a force of nature that if they appear, something is gonna go batshit crazy, and so there's not going to be someone coming out of it alive. That doesn't always happen with the zombies. You've got Brendan Gleeson being able to just push them over with a riot shield at the beginning. You've got the car sequence as well, where they're coming close and then they just drive away. Like, sure, it's uplifting moments in a in a world that's not supposed to have that many uplifting
Mm.
moments, but I would have kind of preferred it if they felt like more of a threat, and every time they did show up, you'd be on the edge of your seat thinking, who's gonna die? Who's gonna die? What's going on? I don't know. But no, there is that nice sense sometimes that you can sit back and relax and know that nothing bad's gonna happen.
Yeah, there are some moments, nice moments as well. Again, like you were saying,
Mm.
where currently the world is that world at that point is so void of happiness, hope, and anything. There are some really nice sprinkles of humanity, especially when you've got that main group of four, where you've got Cillian Murphy, Brendan Gleeson, Naomi Harris, and I think her name is Megan Burns, who I will want to talk about in a little bit. But uh, just the moment where they're in the supermarket and they're raiding the shelves and they're going nuts. Moments like that, again, it's where you can enjoy the little moments, you enjoy the smaller moments, because that's something that we often take for granted. And so in an apocalyptic scenario, them able to do that, it created a really nice family dynamic, I thought.
I really like Cillian Murphy and Naomi Harris's like differing ideologies. Like you've got Naomi Harris who has been in the apocalypse for the 28 days it's been happening, and she's just basically thinking, all right, everything's gone to shit. If something else goes to shit, I'm going to leave that behind. But with Cillian Murphy, he's still that ray of hope,
Mm.
and I think it's kind of interesting to have those two bouncing off of each other, and eventually Cillian Murphy showing that at the end of the film that yeah, hope is actually the thing that's going to get us through it. Like even though it means that you're gonna have to do some horrible things like kill Christopher Eccleston. How could you, Cillian? Like even then, things are gonna turn out all right, and it's especially shown in that final scene where they're showing the flag or it's that big help us sign on the floor.
Mm.
And very, very subtle thing that I really liked about that. Throughout the whole film, everything looks so grainy, everything looks so disgusting. But that final shot, it's actually super clean, as if it's on an HD camera. And it's like they intentionally made everything look shit in the rest of the film to make that final scene feel even more impactful. I think that's such a clever and understated thing that they do in that film that I really, really love.
It's interesting that you mentioned the ending, because I'm personally, I'm not overly fond of the ending. I feel like because you
Hmm.
have that really gritty and grainy quite presence and tone throughout, the almost idealistic happy ending, tie everything with a nice little bow on it, it felt kind of out of place. So I did some digging, and apparently Danny Boyle shot an alternate ending. So the moment where Cillian Murphy is shot and his life kind of hangs in the balance, rather than just kind of fade to black and then he wakes up in the cottage with Naomi Harris's character and Hannah still there. Rather than that almost quite happy ending, his alternate ending was that they drive him to a deserted hospital. They try and save him, but he eventually dies, because Danny Boyle wanted it to be like we first meet his character on a hospital bed, and his character ends up dying on a hospital bed, and so he wanted to leave it on a very sour, somber note, as Naomi Harris
Hmm.
and Hannah kind of leave him to sort of try to continue to survive. But the studio didn't like that ending. They did some test screenings, and the response was very much quite negative. So they said to him like you need to tweak the ending. And so to spite the studio and the test audiences, he shot on purpose a very overly happy, quite almost cheesy like ending, to basically
Hmm.
just go, yeah, there you go. You want your happy ending, you got it. Um, the character of Hannah. Um,
Terrible.
I mean, as a character, I don't think she's horrendously written. She has
Hmm.
some pretty dumb moments, like when she just runs off when the zombies are attacking, and she just decides, you know what, I'm gonna peg it. I was like, why would you do that in that scenario when you're kind of in a good position where you are? I just didn't think that the actress Megan Burns was was that good. Her line delivery is so flat. She sounds so
Mm.
uninterested in anything that she says.
And not only that, anytime she says a line, it feels like she's saying a line in a really small room.
The
Like
ADR
the
sounds off.
ADR. The ADR is really bad for her. It's absolutely terrible. Especially that point where Naomi Harris is dragging her along, and you just hear her go, "Oh no."
Her reaction when her dad dies, like she has just seen her, like obviously Brendan Gleeson gets infected, and then the soldier intervenes, and I count he pops him in the chest. I think either 4 or 5 times. Okay, this dude is dead. He is down on the
Mm.
ground, deceased, and she just like very ever so slightly whimpers, "Dad, are you okay?"
Dad?
I'm not a medical expert. I don't think he is. So, Hector, after seeing 28 Days Later for the first time in forever, what are you going to give it?
Well, for me personally, because I had never watched it before, I definitely give it a worth it.
And so those were our thoughts on 28 Days Later, and now it is time to move on to my pick, and that is Heat.
You know, we're sitting here, you and I, like a couple of regular fellas. I mean, you do what you do, I do what I gotta do. And now that we've been face to face, if I'm there and I gotta put you away, I won't like it. But I'll tell you, if it's between you and some poor bastard whose wife you're gonna turn into a widow, brother, you are going down.
Al Pacino and Robert De Niro star in a good old-fashioned cops and robbers action thriller. De Niro plays a highly experienced thief who will stop at nothing to complete the job at hand, whilst Pacino plays a hardened detective who also will stop at nothing to catch his man.
Luke, this is a first time in forever for you. What did you think? What did you think of Heat?
I dug the hell out of this movie.
Yeah.
This is so badass. So I sat watching it because it's not a short movie by any stretch. It's nearing 3 hours. I think it's like 250. I think.
Mm.
I mean, and initially I was like, oh my god, like this could drag. I don't want it to drag, but you think realistically of a heist film, there's so much setup and build up that needs to go into it. I was like, the last thing I want is to like be bored in this. But I can safely say I was never bored. It moves at such a blisteringly quick pace. Even the slower moments have purpose within the film. I'll get into it a little bit later when we're discussing more of the characters. But on the whole, similar to how 28 Days Later kind of set a new precedent for the zombie genre, I think Heat sets a new precedent, or when it was released in the mid 90s, set a new precedent for the heist genre. From that moment on, so many films kind of looked to Heat as the top example for how to do this properly.
That's fair. Would you say it has the best description of someone's big ass ever in it?
I that's genuinely one of my favorite lines in all of cinema now. Is when, like, obviously Pacino's questioning the dude that's sleeping with Val Kilmer's wife in the film, and I watched the video. Apparently, they never quite made it as clear in the film. Al Pacino was talking to Christopher Nolan in a panel, and he was explaining that Pacino's character Vincent is actually a cocaine addict. They just never properly mention it in the film. So, kind of looking at it through that lens, you then kind of get why he just kind of goes off on a complete tangent when he's talking to the guy. He's like, "'Cause she's got a great ass."
Because she got a great ass!
I just love the way his eyes explode out of him whilst he says that as well.
Pacino is just on like maximum Pacino mode in this,
Mm.
and like, yes, some parts like that scene, it's very much comedic, but I mean, he's so good in this film. as is De Niro. Like initially, when I heard, when I kind of looked into it a bit more, that this is quite like action orientated. Pacino and Robert De Niro aren't necessarily two names that immediately spring to mind. Obviously, in the crime genre, yes, but a crime action film, not so much. But they smash it out of the park for this film. Like, obviously that iconic scene between the two of them in the coffee shop is just, it is textbook. It's textbook of mastery of direction, of writing, of acting. It's so good.
I'd like to point out as well that with every scene with De Niro and Pacino, you never actually see both of their faces in the same shot.
Really?
It's always shot, reverse shot. You never actually get a moment where you see both of them properly in shot together.
For that coffee shop scene, I thought that did they not have it at the final shot of the film once?
The final shot of the film is Pacino looking towards the camera and De Niro looking away.
Ah,
Yeah.
very interesting. Also, like, the cast for this film, I mean, it puts like a lot of other ensembles to shame. Just to like read out like a couple of the characters in this. You've got obviously Pacino and De Niro. You've got Val Kilmer, Tom Sizemore, Danny Trejo, Mike L.T. Williamson, Ashley Judd, John Voight, and there are so many more still in this film. I think Wes Studi's in it as one of the other police officers.
Keira Knightley as a young role as well.
I know that was Natalie Portman. Natalie Portman plays Pacino's daughter. Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer is so cool and smooth in this film. He's the mid 90s for him was a great era. Obviously, I know he had Top Gun in the mid to late 80s. But have you ever seen Tombstone?
I have not seen Tombstone.
That is a film I really, really strongly recommend. It's some of Val Kilmer's best work. It's like it's very much a western, but it's done with like a modern-ish sensibility. It's so cool.
Back in the day, he was such a great actor. Like, he's a great action star. He's really great for those tense moments. Like the moment where he's outside of his girlfriend's or wife's house, and they just both look at each other. And the moment she does a hand signal and the face change, as you just know he realizes, shit, he can't see her anymore. It's great. It really puts you into the tenseness of that film, and he does a great job of carrying it throughout as well.
And that's definitely something I really like about Heat, is that you get so many heist movies. They're even trying to copy Heat. There was an example a couple of years ago called Den of Thieves, which I thought was good, but it very much was way too much of a carbon copy of Heat. And Heat excels.
Budget Heat.
Yeah, it is literally. But Heat excels with what it does with its characters, because they all feel human, even though you've got these criminals that are killing people and committing heinous crimes. The film still takes the time to really flesh them out and get us to understand who they are, why they're doing this. And so when you get, again, like Den of Thieves, it literally just treats them as, you are a cop and you are a good guy and you are a robber, you are a bad guy. With Heat, there's so much more complexity to it.
Yeah, that's what really drew me into the film the first time I watched it, especially with De Niro's character. Like, I absolutely loved what they did with him when I first watched it, and how he is an awful person, but he doesn't want to be. Like, he really wants out of this whole situation. He really wants to just be with this woman, live his life somewhere else, and he's so close to that. And that, can I talk about that moment where he's at the car and then he sees Pacino, and it's heartbreaking.
It's cold. It is cold. When he just because like you were saying, like, he doesn't want to have this life. He wants out, and he was so close to getting out. And you can see, like, this is probably the only time in his life that he's ever contemplated, like, maybe I should just give in. Maybe I should just give up at this point, because he sees Edie and then eventually the temptation to just remain on the run is too strong for him, and he ends up trying to escape. And yeah, it's cold. It's oh.
In a film called Heat, you get a cold moment like that, and it's mwah.
What I also really like, that I kind of didn't really notice until a little later on in the film, is that besides their differences of opinion on Law and Order, Pacino and De Niro's characters in the film are almost identical. That's probably why they like connect and also differ so greatly, is because they're both of them are unable to maintain relationships because of their profession, because of their almost obsession with wanting. For Pacino, it's obsession with catching the next guy. For De Niro, it's obsession with getting on with the next job. And so you kind of realize that they're alone in these worlds, and there's almost like a poignancy to it, of like in that final moment where they hold each other's hand as Robert De Niro dies. It's like they, in a weird almost kind of way, they've found their counterpart, almost someone that is basically perfect for them but could never be.
Yeah, it's true. Like, if my mum was right about this being a gay musical, I was trying to sell my mum on the film, and I said, so the film's called Heat. It's like, oh, is it a gay thing? And I was like, no, Mum, no, but it could be.
And as well, Michael Mann has such a surefire grasp, especially on the adrenaline of this movie. When this film kicks into gear and you get the heist sequences, and especially the shootout that happens about 2 hours into the film, it is brilliant just to watch the streets of LA turn into a war zone.
Yeah, it's great as well how it's paced and how it's shot, because the way it's done is that all the time you've got Pacino and his crew just basically going further and further down, trying to push these guys towards the rest of them. And the way it's done is really makes you feel like you're there. Like so many action films, they try and make it so overblown and overdramatic where it's like you're looking at the spectacle, but you're not really knowing entirely what's going on. Whilst Heat, it puts you right into the shoes of the characters. The cinematography really makes you feel like you're one of those guys down at the bottom with them, and you're following along the action the whole time, and it's tense because people are dying left, right, and center. You don't know who's going to be going next. You've got Val Kilmer basically on the ropes the whole time.
It's all filmed to seem very realistic because, I, again, didn't realise this at the time and kind of looked it up afterwards. That sequence itself, a lot of it was choreographed. I don't know if you've ever heard of Andy McNabb.
Nope.
He's a former SAS soldier. He's written a ton of books since. And he was actually brought on board to choreograph that shootout, to make it seem as realistic as possible, so that when they're shooting it, it almost feels like the audience is there, as like kind of like a passive viewer watching on the sidelines. And they kind of do that as well with the sound design throughout the film, but especially in that moment, it is so crystal clear. Like the gunshots, whenever they're being fired, it feels like they're just like thudding into your chest.
And the way the film doesn't use music in that moment as well, and it just relies on your engagement in the characters and what's going on. That's ballsy as hell, but it works so well. And it's impressive because the rest of the film has such a great score.
I wasn't expecting the heist, the main heist of the film and the eventual shootout. I thought that would be more like the final piece that would be towards the end. And so obviously when that heist wraps up and then you kind of look and you've still got about 45 minutes left, I was a bit like, okay, I'm not quite sure how they're going to pad this out. And I don't think it was badly done. I just think in terms of tone, where you've just come off of this intense, adrenaline-infused roller coaster that was that entire sequence, then when you've got them trying to tie up the loose ends. Robert De Niro's trying to escape. Val Kilmer as well, trying to get in contact with his wife and then having to leave. I just felt tonally it kind of, instead of gently tap the brake pedal, kind of just slammed it on, and it took me about 5-10 minutes to go, okay, we're easing back a bit. And then there's the whole subplot with Waingro, who I get it was meant to be sort of, we're not meant to see Robert De Niro necessarily as just a general antagonist. Waingro is much more of the evil dickhead. But I just wasn't as invested in that side of the story as I wish I could have been. And I feel like the same goes for Dennis Haybert's character, I think it was. He becomes he comes off of parole, I think it was, and he goes and becomes a grill cook. He's eventually hired by De Niro to be the replacement driver. I just felt that was a bit filler. Like, they spend quite a lot of time getting us invested into who this character is, only for him to literally like go out 3 minutes into the heist.
You know, I entirely agree on both. The grill man and Waingro. I think those two bits are easily the weakest part of the film because they just don't do enough with those characters. Like, I like what they do with Waingro and how it's really linked into De Niro's character and why he wants to go back, because he just wants to wrap up everything. He just wants to sort out everything so he never has to deal with any of that again. I think that's really interesting, but that's it's such a disconnect because Waingro disappears from the film about half an hour in, and then by about 2 hours and 30, it's like, oh yeah, Waingbro's here. It's like, oh,
he's back. Okay, yeah.
bit of whiplash there, but all right, that's a thing. And yeah, the grill man himself, it's just okay. I get it. Bad people, they just let people die. Sure, it's nothing. It adds nothing else to the rest of the film.
Yeah.
But then again, for me, I think the stuff that they do after the shootout, even continuing after that, I love that. Genuinely, I really, really love that. Because, well, on the first watch I did. Because I just really like the fact that it's not this epic shootout that's supposed to be just boots on the ground, looks great, and then it ends when somebody gets shot. I like the fact that it continues going, and it does so much more with the themes and the ideas of the film, and it basically wraps up all of that by the end. It does mean we get that filler stuff in between, which I am not awfully fond of, but there are so many other moments in that final section that I love, that I really cannot be too annoyed at those other moments.
On the whole, though, I thought Heat was a seriously entertaining, blisteringly quick, given the runtime, and amazingly executed action crime thriller. Michael Mann, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, all on their A game. I'm really, really looking forward to rewatching this again. So, after watching Heat for the first time in forever, I can safely say that it is worth it. So, those were our thoughts on 28 Days Later and Heat. Let me know what you thought of those films down in the comments below. I want to give a massive thank you to RutterReviews. Please go and check out his stuff. He's going to be bringing back his YouTube channel. He's got a few new ideas that he's looking forward to posting. I will include a link in the description to that, as well as his Letterboxd account. This man watches so many movies. You refresh it every half an hour and something new will be on there from him. Go and give him a follow. Go and check out, again, his extensive filmography. His film collection is insane. So do yourself a favor and go give him a follow.
If you haven't watched Luke's reviews and you're watching them from me after me sharing this link, you should watch more, because they're pretty f***ing good. If you don't, you know what, that's perfectly fair, but you're wrong for not doing that. So watch his reviews, admire the Sonic, and have a great time.
Thank you very much. As I'm sure some of you are aware, we are currently on the road to 300 subs. So, like Hector said, if you are watching this video and you aren't already subscribed, please subscribe to me. It will mean the absolute world. And if you are watching this and you are subscribed, share the video around. Maybe someone will see it and also join the Luke's Review army. Again, that does it for this week, and here is what you can expect for next week. Thanks for watching. If you have enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, please make sure that you click that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All the links to my social media accounts, my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and my letterbox are all in the description below. And if you haven't liked the video, what are you still doing here?